Hello. I thought I'd do a stream today, jumping back on the embeds issue for Ink, the plugin Ink. I looked at it in detail in how to technically create it the other day, but what I wanted to do today was I've been working in it and I've come across a range of different options of how I can implement it, and they have different impacts. So I thought I'd talk through them and maybe get your opinion on the things that I've landed on. Let's have a look. So the goals of the embed. So obviously I'm converting from a code block to an embed line. So an embed line looks like, if I go here, I can go some text and then the file name .svg, because they'll be SVGs now. So that's what an embed block will look like. And so they'll automatically be replaced by the images even when the plugin's not installed. So it doesn't have to be that, but that's kind of what I've landed on. So in terms of my goals, I want it to be visible everywhere. So that was the problem with the code block. If you turned off the plugin or if you opened it in something other than Obsidian, the image wouldn't show. So I want it to be visible everywhere. So that means inside Obsidian, even with the plugin turned off, it should be visible. And also in other editors other than Obsidian, so that you can jump between programs or you can convert off Obsidian if you want. I have no plans to develop the Ink plugin for other editors just yet, but you should still be able to view those images if you send it to a friend, whatever. And then thirdly, the transcript and the settings should be applicable per embed. So yes, you'll have your SVG file and your Ink drawing file sitting somewhere else, but when it's embedded into your note, then there should be a space for a transcript. So eventually when I implement OCR, object character recognition, to analyze your handwriting and tell you what it says, that transcript needs to go somewhere. And so that should be in the embed. That should be in the embed because the embed might not show all of the text that's visible, that's in the file, but also it should be in the note because the note needs to know what text is in it. So it needs to be part of the embed. And then also the settings of the embed. So each embed has a particular size. It might have a particular camera perspective if it's a drawing, things like that. So all of these things need to be solved by this new format that I'm developing. So let's have a look at some of the things I've tried. So the first one is the Obsidian embed, and Obsidian's not paying attention to my breakpoints. So let's just go no settings. So the Obsidian embed currently implemented with no settings. So it's visible everywhere? No, because the Obsidian embed is customized for Obsidian. It looks like this: 2 square brackets followed by a file name, followed by 2 square brackets, but it only shows in Obsidian. It doesn't show in other editors. And in this particular implementation, it doesn't have a transcript or settings. But if I scroll down, I've fixed some of that. So still an Obsidian embed, but this time it has transcript and settings. So that should be has. So if we look at this, what I've done is I've got the file name, and then I've got a pipe character, and then I've got the transcript. And what I can do is I can also put another pipe and put in settings. And I'll just write the word settings just to indicate that. So now, even with the plugin turned off, because the plugin is turned off right now, this hides and it shows that image. So this image is showing, right? And it's ignoring the transcript and the settings. Except that, and you see I've got a little, I don't have quite a green tick here for settings, because except that if I open up this, and I'll make my head nice and small, and I look at this image, I'll notice it's an image tag, and it's applied an alt tag of the transcript. So it's taken that, what Obsidian calls display text. So if I go here and delete this, and I put a pipe, it says what I'm typing in now is display text. So Obsidian says you can put a pipe in, and everything after that will be your alt text, or what they call display text. So that's good because it means it ignores it and it handles it well. But what it means for this is the alt tag now contains the settings as well. So if a screen reader reads this out, it's going to read out the settings as well. And also any other program will probably consider that text-based content of the note. So I don't really want the settings to be taken into account in that way. So it's kind of getting there, but it's kind of not. But also we haven't solved this problem of other editors being able to open it. So if I have a look at another editor, this is just a markdown viewer in Chrome. And you can see those aren't being displayed as images. However, if I scroll down, Obsidian also has standard markdown embeds. So standard markdown embeds look like this. They have an exclamation mark. They have a open square bracket with the alt text there, and I've put in the word transcript. They've got a closed square bracket, and then they've got round brackets with the file name. Now, because markdown links don't by default support spaces, and these file names have spaces, to get around that you put a angled bracket around your file name, and then it works. And that's pretty standard in markdown formats, markdown viewers, but not necessarily ubiquitous. But I'll have to look into that later. But the only way around that would be to remove the spaces, which I'm not too keen on doing, because eventually people might like to rename their own files as well. But this is visible everywhere now. So it's visible in Obsidian with the plugin turned off. It's visible in other editors. The transcript's in there, but the settings aren't in there yet. So if I scroll down here, you'll see it's that one. It displays that image and knows how to. If I scroll further, let's get those settings in there. So now we're going to put the settings after a pipe symbol in the transcript. So that works. The transcript's still in there, the settings are still in there, the file name's still fine and works. You can see it appears in Obsidian without the plugin turned on. But now we have a similar problem to before, where those settings are going to be seen as text content as part of the note, right? But this is the closest I've gotten. So now we have everything working, except that the settings are kind of going to be read out by screen readers and considered content, right? But if we have a look at this and scroll down, you can see it does work. So everything's a tick, but there's this little kind of but there. So can we approach this from a different way? Okay, so let's go standard embed settings in filepath. Now that's pretty quickly doesn't work because it breaks in other editors. So if I go to that, you can see it no longer works, right? Let me test something with that. And I just thought of, what if I put this at the end. That works in Obsidian. Let's save that and let's come back and let's refresh that. Settings in file path. Yeah, settings in file path. It's broken. So you can see it now knows that it is a link, but it doesn't know what to do with that file. It doesn't know where to find that file because it's getting confused by this pipe symbol. Right, so that's a bit of a dead end as well. We get the settings in there, we get the transcript in there, but we actually break it in other editors. Not necessarily all other editors, but the fact that the first one I've tried has broken, I'm not going to pursue that. So let's go to the next one. Standard embed, settings separately. Now this one's interesting. I can, and what I might do here is jump past this and go to the source file in Z. So if we look at these, we just see what the text is. Settings in alt text, settings in file path, settings separately. So it's got ticks on everything. And you can see what we've done is we've got a normal standard embed with the transcript, but then we just have the settings on a new line. Now the plugin can pick that up and it can hide all of that. But when the plugin is off, then the settings are still going to be visible in Obsidian, even though the image is showing, and they're still going to be visible in any other markdown editor, even though the image is showing. So it's kind of a win, but other editors, not quite perfectly. I would actually degrade that to not a full tick. And that should be across. This is all just for me, really. So it is visible in other editors, but it's kind of like got this big but, big exception, which isn't great. Especially because in other editors or even in Obsidian, you could kind of mess that up and then you've broken your link. So it's better if it's completely hidden. So jumping a bit further, standard embed, settings separately, but piped. So let's have a look at this one. This looks like it's got all ticks. It's got visible settings in other editors, but it doesn't seem to have it here. So let's have a look at how this is made. So how the sausage is made is settings separately but piped. And you can see now the settings are on their own line, but they've been set up as a link. So now I've got display text of edit drawing, or it could be ink drawing, whatever we want it to be. Then I've got a URL, and it doesn't have to be anything. It could be, it could actually be ink drawing. Or it could be version 1, right? Version 1 of this file type. And then I've got the settings. So I could change this. I could format it however I want. Like I could separate it all by pipes. Doesn't really matter. Oops. But because it's set up as a link with a supposed file path or URL and then a display text that will cover that up, now if I go back here, it displays as a link. It doesn't show you the settings, right? Because it thinks it's a link and it should hide that. That works. That's great. If I click on it, I see the settings. That's just what Obsidian does. But let's look at it in other editors. So if I go to this and I refresh, we see it's broken. So separately but piped. So because it doesn't know what to do with that link, it doesn't recognize that link, it's not doesn't recognize that as a file or a URL. It's not turning it into a link, which is kind of disappointing. But if I undo that and I bring back the URL, and I'll even make this edit settings again and save it. So now I've got a URL, then I've got a pipe, and then I've got the settings. I'll go back and I can see in Obsidian that works because Obsidian knows what to do with pipes. It knows to ignore them. If I refresh this, it's actually still broken. Even though now it does have a URL, because of the pipe, it's broken. So if I, just to test this, if I remove the settings and I refresh this again, now it works, right? So I can't put in the settings in that way. I thought maybe it was the spaces. I'll remove the spaces and try again. Actually, that works. Interesting. I think that's it. Settings separately piped. Okay, interesting. So that pipe without spaces works. So that's possible. So let me add some text here. Remove spaces around pipe, which is no big deal because it's just settings, so I can remove all the spaces. The transcript wouldn't go in here, it'd go in here. With visible settings, remove that, it's not visible anymore. Great, so that is a solution. Let's have a look at Obsidian. That works too. It's a little less readable. I prefer to keep it readable with a space around the pipe, but it's not a big deal because there's a lot of stuff there anyway. And you'll notice I put in a link to the GitHub. So now it says edit settings. And if you're using a different program and you don't know where this drawing has come from, but you want to edit the settings, you click that and it takes you to the URL supposedly, and I'm remembering now I did try this and it was broken. So, but it's added on those settings with the pipe, right? So that URL doesn't work. So, so I actually would go URL is broken here. It's not quite right. Okay, which means I still need a URL. It's not going to work. I still need a URL because otherwise it won't recognize it as a link. Why isn't this working? There we go. Separately but piped. Oh no, it will recognize it as a link, so I don't have to. It's just the spaces that we're breaking it. But either way, if you don't put a link in and you click on it, it's not going to work because there's no link, right? So I still want to have a link, and I'll tell you why. Let's go to the next one to look at why. So now let's go to the next one. Standard embed. Settings separately but as parameters. So I've kind of put with visible settings here, but actually it still says edit. It says edit drawing. It doesn't actually show the settings. So let's say with visible link, display link. And let's have a look at what that is. So now it's probably easier to look in this other file. Let's scroll down. So now it's the same as before. It's got the link, but here, like any normal URL that has parameters, it then has a question mark, and then it has the parameters, and the parameters are the settings, right? So now all the settings are there. They've just been changed in their format so that they don't ruin this URL. So now if I scroll down, well, in Obsidian, we know it works. If I scroll down in the Chrome-based one, it's a link. And if I click it, it opens up the GitHub repository. So it goes to that link. So that's really handy, because now if you open this file in a different editor, or someone else that you sent this file opens it and they want to know how to edit this, they can click on it. They can go, oh, edit drawing, I'll click on that, and then they get taken to an information page. Whoops. They get taken to an information page where it tells them, at the moment it's just linking to the GitHub, but I'll make it an information page where it tells them that this is an ink embed. If you want to edit it, you can install the plugin in Obsidian. Okay, so that works pretty well. Now, one last question you might have looking at this is, if the question mark format works, can we do it for a normal standard embed and put it all directly in there? Can we just have the file name and then a question mark and then the format settings there? Well, let's have a look. So let's go back. Come on, what are you doing? If we scroll down, standard embed, settings in filepath as parameters. It works here. So now the settings doesn't even have a link, but the settings are there. But, and I might not have updated this, but if I go and have a look in here, it's actually broken in Obsidian. So Obsidian, even though it knows what to do with a pipe, it doesn't know what to do with a question mark, which is kind of a little surprising, because this is common to files and URLs, less common to local files, but it's common to URL links. So I would have expected it to handle that, but it doesn't. So that's broken in Obsidian, which means it doesn't, it actually works here, but it doesn't work here. And so similarly, if I remove the spaces just to test that, it still doesn't work in Obsidian. It's the question mark that's screwing it up. So that's a bust. But this one works quite well. So a standard embed with the settings as parameters and a URL with edit drawing text with the parameters for the settings. My only thought here is that maybe people don't want URLs to places that they don't control in their files. But I think that's a small issue. They're already trusting my plugin to do things the right way. And what the plugin puts in is completely visible here. So I think that's not a huge issue, and it actually helps because it gives you a place to go to find information. So this is kind of what I'm landing on. There's kind of two options. Let me close this. There's two options. There is this one where it embeds it in with the transcript, but then the settings will be read out by a screen reader, which isn't ideal. It's for people who use screen readers, and also it's going to pollute your search results when you search for text across your vault, because I'm guessing it will search the alt text. But that's one of the options. And then the other option is this one down here, where we put the settings in as parameters and we get the transcript in separately. So we get the transcript in as the alt text, and then we get the settings in as the link text, and the only additional text we get that might be searchable is this edit drawing text, which is not a big deal. So this is probably what I'm going to go with, but I'm curious to see anyone else's kind of thoughts on this as well. Super long one, but hopefully something that is of interest to the people who use this plugin. Let me know your thoughts. I will paste this text into the description. It obviously won't, maybe I won't paste this text into the description because it won't work unless you have the SVG anyway. But let me just put it on screen nice and big here so you can see it. Oh, maybe I will paste it in. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for tuning in. If you stayed this long, it's a miracle. See ya.